All right, welcome back to the English Prep Podcast. We're diving into something today I know a lot of you think about and maybe even worry about: English proficiency exams.
Yeah, they can definitely feel like a pretty big hurdle for people, right?
For sure. With all the different exams out there, it can be hard to even know where to start, you know?
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people listening probably wonder why these tests are so important in the first place.
Well, think about it this way. These exams give institutions and organizations across the globe a common language to understand your English skills. It's like a universal translator for English abilities.
So like a key that unlocks opportunities, whether you want to study in another country, get a job that uses English, or even, immigrate somewhere new.
Exactly. It really is a key that opens doors.
Cool. So let's get into it. When people talk about proving their English level, a couple of names usually come up first: IELTS and TOEFL, right?
Yeah, those are definitely the heavy hitters. The IELTS stands for International English Language Testing System, and TOEFL stands for Test of English as a Foreign Language.
Both of them test you on all four main skills: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. But there are some interesting differences right from the start.
Right, so with IELTS, you actually have two versions to choose from: academic and general training.
The academic one is mostly for, getting into university, right?
Yeah, universities usually require that one because it's more focused on the kind of language you'll use in academic settings.
Yeah.
Reading textbooks, writing essays, following lectures, that sort of thing.
Ah, I see. And the general training version.
That's the one that sometimes comes up for immigration or other purposes, where the focus is more on everyday English, like being able to understand conversations, write emails, or navigate social situations.
Makes sense. And with IELTS, you can take it on paper or computer, but the speaking part is usually face-to-face with an examiner.
Yeah, which some people actually prefer because it feels more like a natural conversation. And the IELTS scoring system uses bands from 1 to 9, and you can get half band scores too, like 7.5.
Okay, got it. And how about TOEFL? I know a lot of American universities use that one, right?
Yeah, it's super common in the US. And one thing that makes it a bit different is that you always take it on a computer, and it's known for being very tech-focused.
Oh, right. I remember the speaking part of TOEFL is interesting because you record your answers instead of having a live conversation with someone.
Exactly. Some people find that less stressful,
Yeah.
not having someone right there watching you. And TOEFL gives you a numerical score out of 120.
So is it like if you want to study in the UK or Australia, you should probably go for IELTS, and if you're aiming for the US, TOEFL is the way to go?
Well, it's generally true that IELTS is more common in the UK, Australia, and Canada, while TOEFL is big in the US. But you always want to double-check the requirements of the specific places you're interested in.
Yeah, good point. They might have their own preferences or even a minimum score they're looking for.
Exactly. Best to be safe and check beforehand.
Now, IELTS and TOEFL are definitely the most famous, but there are some other players in the game worth knowing about, right?
Definitely. There are other exams out there that might be a good fit depending on your goals and preferences. For instance, there are the Cambridge English exams, like the C1 Advanced and C2 Proficiency.
Those are pretty high level, right?
Yeah, they're for learners who have already achieved a pretty advanced level of English. But one really interesting thing about the Cambridge exams is that the certificates you get, if you pass, don't expire. They last your whole life.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. So no need to keep retaking the exam every few years.
Exactly. It's a qualification that's with you for good.
Nice. And there's also the PTE, right?
Yep, the Pearson Test of English.
Yep.
This one is completely computer-based from start to finish, and it's known for being pretty efficient in terms of getting your scores back quickly.
Oh, that's handy if you need the results fast.
Yeah, for people on a tight schedule or up against application deadlines, that can be a really big advantage.
Okay, so we've got IELTS, TOEFL, Cambridge, and PT. Lots of choices.
And that's not even all of them. There is even more specialized exams out there. But the key is to figure out which one is the best match for you.
Right. So how should someone go about making that decision?
Well, the first step, and maybe the most obvious one, is to think about your goals. What are you hoping to achieve by taking an English proficiency exam? Is it to apply for a university program, get a visa, or maybe boost your professional profile?
Your goals are like the compass guiding your choice, right?
Exactly. Once you have a clear sense of what you're aiming for, you can start narrowing down your options. If you're applying to universities in a country where IELTS is the standard, that pretty much makes your decision for you.
Right. But even if your goal is clear, how do you choose between exams that seem pretty similar?
Well, that's where it gets a bit more personal. Think about the kind of test format you're most comfortable with. Are you a tech person who loves the idea of taking a computer-based exam, or do you prefer the traditional pen and paper approach?
And what about the speaking test? Some people find the face-to-face format more natural, while others get really nervous in those situations and might prefer recording their answers.
Exactly. It really comes down to what allows you to perform your best. There's no right or wrong answer there.
And what about the kind of English you're most familiar with? Like, is it the English used in the exam similar to the English you've been using in studying?
Ah, that's a really good point. If you've spent most of your time learning academic English, you might feel more comfortable with an exam that has a more formal academic style. If you've been using English mainly for everyday communication, a test that focuses on practical social language might be a better fit.
So think about what comes most naturally to you in terms of language use.
Definitely. And don't forget to think about logistics, too. Things like how often the test is offered in your area, where the test centers are, and how much it costs.
Sometimes the most practical option, the one that fits your schedule and budget, might be the best choice, even if it wasn't your top pick initially.
Absolutely. Sometimes practical considerations have to win out.
Okay, so you've chosen your exam, you know what you're working towards, and you're ready to start preparing. What are some tips for making sure you're ready come test day?
Well, first things first, make a plan. Don't try to cram everything in at the last minute. Create a study schedule, set realistic goals for yourself, and stick to it as much as you can.
So try to dedicate a little bit of time each day to practicing all four skills. Listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Consistency is key, right?
Absolutely. And while you're studying, make a conscious effort to learn new words regularly. A strong vocabulary is really going to help you in all sections of the exam.
Don't just memorize lists of words, though, right?
No. It's more about understanding the meanings of words and how to use them correctly in different contexts.
So, if you come across a new word while reading, try to figure out its meaning from the surrounding text.
Yeah, and then try to use that word in your own speaking or writing. The more you practice using new vocabulary, the more natural it will become.
It's also important to get familiar with the format of the exam you've chosen.
Oh, for sure. Take some practice tests under timed conditions to get used to the pace and the types of questions you'll encounter. That way, you won't be surprised by anything on the actual test day.
And if you can, get some feedback on your practice, especially for the writing and speaking sections. A fresh pair of eyes can often spot things you might miss.
And don't forget about the power of immersing yourself in English as much as you can outside of your dedicated study time. Watch English language movies and TV shows, listen to podcasts, read English books and articles, and try to speak English whenever you get the chance.
Yeah, those are great ways to improve your listening skills and pick up on natural language patterns without even feeling like you're studying.
Right. And don't be afraid to use the many resources that are out there to support your learning. There are lots of helpful websites, apps, and online forums where you can connect with other English learners and get advice.
It's okay to ask for help and support.
Absolutely. And it can really make a difference.
Now, it's totally normal to feel stressed or overwhelmed at times while you're preparing for an exam. You might feel like you don't have enough time or you're not making progress as quickly as you'd like.
Yeah, those feelings are really common, but it's important not to let them derail you.
If you find yourself feeling stressed, take a break, do something you enjoy to relax, and remind yourself why you decided to take this exam in the first place. And celebrate the small victories along the way.
Acknowledge the progress you're making, no matter how small it might seem. Those little wins can really help keep you motivated.
And then, when the big day finally arrives, make sure you get a good night's sleep beforehand, eat a healthy breakfast, and give yourself plenty of time to get to the test center.
You don't want to add any unnecessary stress on test day. And once you're there, just take a deep breath, focus on what you've learned, and try to stay calm and confident. You've got this.
Trust in the hard work you've put in, and try to enjoy the experience of putting your English skills to the test.
It's a chance to show off what you've learned.
Exactly. And remember, no matter what happens on test day, it's just one step in your English learning journey. Keep practicing, keep learning, and keep exploring all the amazing things you can do with English.
So what's one small step you can take today to move closer to your goal of acing that English proficiency exam? Think about that and let's get started. Best of luck from the English Prep Podcast.
Until next time.